whatever it is that's in there. Whatever it is they're guarding so carefully. It's real. God help us all.
Can you kill it?
I believe something can.
A monster.
No, a god.
The arrogance of man is thinking nature is in our control, and not the other way around. Let them fight.
Hi everyone, welcome once again to Geekfest Rants. My name is Carlos Perron, and joining me today for part 2 of our Godzilla 2014 review, I have Mike Sutton, Kyle Perron, and later on the show, Steve Avona will also join us to discuss how he felt about the movie. On this part 2 concluding episode, we have some more opinions on the movie, plus we also look a little into the merchandising of the film, and the music of the film, and also the possible and actual public reaction to certain topics that are addressed during this film. So let's pick it up where we left off last time. Well, let's explore one side thing here that has to do with this movie that I always like to talk about. Merchandising. Mike, you are a big Godzilla toy collector. What is out there for this film for people to collect?
Well, if you go to Toys R Us, they do have some toys. There's a Godzilla toy that you pull down on his tail and his mouth opens up, little blue flame shoots out and he roars.
We saw this gigantic, like 2-foot Godzilla.
Can we go there?
What?
Now? Where'd you see it? Because
Where did we see it? At the toy.
Oh, the toy. It was the Wayne.
The Wayne Toy Fest.
Oh.
All right. Because I hear.
3 of those there.
Because I hear those are hard to come by.
Really?
Yeah, I think they're produced by a company called Jax. But yes, there is a big 2-foot Godzilla that's very hard to find. I understand Toys R Us were only getting 1 or 2
KB.
apiece.
I saw it at KB. I saw
or
it at KB.
KB.
Not KB. KB doesn't exist. I
was gonna say.
Kmart.
Oh, then we got to go to Kmart after this podcast.
Dude, let's go to Kmart right
We
after
need to go
this.
now,
We'll go to Kmart.
so I can buy it. But honestly, no, that is a hard one to find. They do have some smaller toys where I think he like his tail smash and
it was
foot
funny
smash.
because before the movie
And-
came out, everybody was wondering, what does he look like? What does he look like? The toys leaked out,
Yeah.
and people started to see the Muto. They were no, who's the bad guy? Who's the bad guy? And they started to see the Mutos and what Godzilla actually looked like.
Yeah, I heard there's a Pack of Destruction set that has the
yeah,
Muto.
Yeah,
I haven't seen that one. I
Yeah,
have
it's
to
like
try
a
and get
mini.
that one.
It's like little miniatures. You got like a Godzilla, and then you have like miniature buildings that you can like knock and break in half and stuff.
Yeah, that's the only Muto toys that I'm aware of.
All right, we're gonna do a Kmart
We need to
run
run
after this
As soon
recording.
as we're done. Good thing my credit card's clean.
Well, here's the thing. At this rate, what is this? May? What? By August, this movie will probably be on DVD. Most likely by the fall.
October probably.
Usually
Yeah, September,
they're pretty
October.
fast. Hopefully, when that comes out, we'll get maybe more deleted scenes, especially the one that the scene that Mike was talking about.
Mr.
And-
Takarada?
Yeah, and a lot of the making of. I want to see a lot about all this making of stuff for this movie because I haven't been able to see much of it. Since this was 3D, we actually saw it not only in an IMAX, but it was IMAX 3D because it just, timing-wise, it happened to be the best show we could see. So we watched it in 3D.
That's why we only saw it in 2D at 10 o'clock because it's all timing. There was a lot of people all coming in from work, out of town. We wanted to get dinner. And we couldn't do the 7 o'clock show, so that's why we picked the 10. 10 o'clock was 2D. So I do want to see it, an IMAX. 3D I don't care about, but I'd just like to see it again. And
the sound was really cool. I remember particularly when you hear the Godzilla scream, everything shook in the theater and the rattling was really cool.
I liked it. I thought his roar wasn't bad. It was good.
What did you think of the music?
I was gonna say, yeah, the music's
Because
not
I know you're a
bad.
big music fan.
Yeah, I forgot Alexander Desplat. I can't remember how you pronounce his last name. The music wasn't too bad. I do want to get it. I like some of the cues, kind of like choir type.
Yeah,
that was
find to me that was
creepy.
That was 2001. Finding the black monolith music. That was kind of weird.
It did work. I was a little disappointed that he didn't try to pay a little homage to Akira Ifukube's music. Just like throw it in there somewhere.
Maybe it's hidden and we never know. Maybe we didn't notice it.
And again, why I like to go back and watch the movie again just to see if it's there. And I understand too. Maybe they couldn't get the rights to it, or you just want to put your own mark on the film, not rehash old music.
Yeah, like I felt the music kind of felt like I've seen only a few of the old Godzilla movies, but I kind of felt like they sounded kind of like of that time. Like the music had that simple orchestra kind of sound.
Yeah, Akira Ifukube was very big in military type marches. He used music. His music accompanied the film a little bit. He used his music to help get the scenes across. It wasn't something that should be standalone. He always wanted to connect it to the scenes.
But it was also very music of its time and of its culture. It was very militaristic. I don't want to say simple, but the beats, there's certain beats that are like, you can tell what year it is just by listening to it.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too, like Godzilla versus the Thing, Mothra versus Godzilla from '64, you could listen to that music and just, if you close your eyes, the pacing, you can see that it's a giant monster walking. Dun, dun, dun. And you can think about him as he's walking. That helped a lot of the scenes. Yeah, but this music, it worked though. Yeah. It was fast-paced enough and eerie at times and destruction. Yeah, I liked it. I will be getting the soundtrack.
Cool.
Again, I do want to watch the movie again and just kind of pay attention now to the sound effects. I think special effects were really good. There was nothing wrong with any of the special effects.
Top-notch CGI,
Top-notch
that's
CGI.
what you get.
I like the fact that Godzilla's walking ashore and he created a tsunami.
That's right. And again, you see all these people getting completely
that's
swept away. I'm like, oh my God.
See, that's where I'm interested in what the Japanese people might think about it. Because when you think back, the last couple of years we had the tsunami, which caused
and the power plant.
The power plant.
Isn't that hitting a little too close to home?
Well, and that's just it. Looking at those visuals and scenes.
Well, the tsunami was in Hawaii, so I think it was okay.
But it doesn't matter. It's still
all,
the point.
It's that area, and it's creepy.
It's the creepy. You just bring back current events that are now in a movie.
It's like too soon. Too soon.
Was it too soon?
Too soon syndrome.
Well, look when we had 9/11. You can't show the World Trade Center because people would be offended.
Right.
They would take New York City and make sure that you never saw the World Trade Center.
I haven't heard any
of old movies.
I haven't heard any blowback because of that yet. At least maybe it's coming. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that felt a little weird. It's like, ooh.
It felt a little weird, and it was also very 9/11-ish. Being that we're in New York, especially the tidal wave, as the tsunami comes in, the couple that run into the store close the door and all the water rushes by. It reminded me of the video footage
the smoke and
of all the
debris.
smoke and debris rolling by as people are taking cover from it. So I think the movie, he tried to get that emotional pull, and he used the current events, the nuclear power plant, the tsunami. And that's why I think it worked. And that music at that point where they're running... And I also, by the way, I thought the dog was going to die until he miraculously snapped the leash. Remember, he was chained.
That dog's dead, man.
That dog, all of a sudden, the leash snapped and he comes running down.
Yeah, but then you see him running forward. He's not outrunning the wave. No way.
That scene when they locked themselves in the shop, it kind of looked just like the scene in Cloverfield when all the dust starts coming by and then they all lock themselves in. It looks just like that scene. I remember.
That's another movie there are elements of the movie Monsters and Cloverfield. They have a lot of this in it. Yeah. But I think we're definitely recommending it. I think to me it's in the Pacific Rim realm of fun, big budget monster movie.
Yes and no.
In which direction?
Pacific Rim was the robots. Those are the characters. That was a fun movie.
Yeah.
It's giant robots fighting giant monsters. I still think this Godzilla movie was trying to hit a little bit on the the tsunami, the effect of nature, of man just thinking that we can control things and we have to pay the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's the same vein. I still think there's two different movies.
There's a subgenre between them.
Yeah, there's a split. Again, Pacific Rim I love because that's more of a fun movie. Yeah, it's a giant robot just beating up giant creatures. This wasn't the fact of just, it's a giant Godzilla's beating giant creatures. There was still some other subtext in there. So I don't know if you want to put them on the same level.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And Pacific Rim was a little more comic booky.
Do you think
this one was not comic book?
Do you think the subtext is something good or something bad?
I think it's something good because it
makes it more serious.
It's trying to make it more serious.
Okay.
There's no jokes in that movie at all. Between, like I said,
Not
looking
really.
at the people that get killed. And yes, at the end where he's the soldier, Kick-Ass, whatever his name was in the movie. He's always going to be known as Kick-Ass.
He's Kick-Ass.
But he just walks into the center where all the refugees are and all the families broken up. Yeah, there's his wife. She's right over there. It's like, oh, come on. Of course.
He knew he was going to
He knew he was going to pop up. But it's just the point of seeing all the people that were hurt and killed were there. But in Pacific Rim, you really didn't see anybody get hurt other than when they're all in the bunker and, hey, they want that little guy because he melded with the monster. Yeah, you break in, but nobody really died.
I still think that what you're talking about right now, which we talked about a little bit earlier, I think that's something that could hurt this film. I think the more serious you make it, then that means you have to address the fact that, most likely, 500,000 people died in this movie. But you don't want to show it because it's too much of a downer. So in other words, how much death do you show? Destruction, forget it. They were able to show us as much destruction as that. But if you have to match the destruction with the death, then it gets to be a little bit of a downer of a movie. And you're like, yeah, Godzilla helped us, but again, we're back to Man of Steel. He saved us from General Zod, but Metropolis is in flames. It's a ruin. It's a cemetery. It's weird. I don't want to give it too much seriousness because then it opens up too many questions for me.
See, but the problem is if you make it too much like Pacific Rim and too campy and too funny, then it's not. It's weird. It then becomes campy.
It's like, where's the sweet spot?
It is the giant. It's a man in a rubber suit mentality.
But that's the thing. The older ones, the man in the rubber suit probably helped them in a way they weren't expecting to be helped. In other words, they probably wanted to look very realistic. You mentioned that in the past that they wanted to do stop motion. They couldn't do it.
No.
But the rubber suit kind of gives you this safety net of, folks, it's just a movie. We have a serious message, but we're not going to show you,
But the serious message for the first Godzilla movies is really just the first one.
And then it was a free-for-all.
Part of the second
Then
one.
it was the WWF.
Well, yeah, King Kong versus Godzilla, when you look at it, it's a wrestling type movie. Also, a lot of the deleted scenes was a lot of comedy.
Oh.
And if you look at the guy, I forget his name of the character, he's like, no more. I'm sick of Godzilla. Sick. He's more of a comedy. So you have to look at King Kong versus Godzilla is a bit of a comedy movie.
Oh, my God.
You really have to look at it. It's a different light.
They infuse it with
They infused it with a little more comedy. And as the movies went on, they tried to make them more humanized. That's why Godzilla versus was Monster Zero. He does the dance where he jumps up and down.
Oh, yeah.
And then towards the end, where everybody hates Godzilla versus Megalon, he became an outright superhero. And if you look at his face, it's kind of almost like smile, and he's jumping around.
That is
where this movie, they tried not to make it the campy and funny.
But you know what?
They're trying to keep it as a serious movie.
What happened with the Japanese films, I think, is the same thing that's happened many times with modern films, especially horror films, where you turn something into a franchise, you sequel the crap out of it, and now the bad guy, the guy you're afraid of, becomes the anti-hero, the guy you're almost cheering for. It's the Freddy Krueger syndrome. It's the Michael Myers syndrome. At first, you're afraid of him, but by the time you get to part 2, part 3, part 4, you're actually looking forward to different ways that these bad guys are behaving, and you're no longer... You kind of flip the movie around. You're now there to have fun, and you want to see these monsters. Let's see how they can do the wrestling moves. Can they flip him and swing him in the air and throw him back? And it's no longer scary. It's a spectacle.
Yeah. And that's what happened to the Godzilla movies. He went from being a bad guy, he was still bad, and then he became the defender of Earth. and then it became into a superhero. So yeah, he has changed over the years.
It's weird.
And this movie, I think they're starting out, let's keep him serious. And I just don't know how much you can... You're only going to do 3 movies. We all know Hollywood, if you could do anything, it's 3 movies.
3.
Other than Pirates of the Caribbean, which made 4. And I just can't see them rebooting. No. I'm just not sure how, like I said before, I don't know how far down the road you can take it.
Well, if you see Godzuki show up, we got problems.
Yes. Up from the depths, 30 stories high.
Or the other one. What was the other one's name? The one with the step on his tail?
That's Minya.
Minya or Godzuki. Either one of those shows up, we got to run for the hills.
Hey, there's my friend Stan who loves Minya. And he would be very...
Godzuki.
Hey, that cartoon was great when I was a kid. Because we had a Godzilla cartoon.
All of a sudden, it's Figment from Disney shows up flying around. So what the hell's this about?
But going back, I give this movie 8 out of 10. I love it. I shouldn't say I love it. Actually, I'm loving it more. I do want to watch it again. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest, too. When you're watching at 10 o'clock at night, I worked all day, rushing into the city. Yeah, I was
it was about 2 hours.
Tired.
It was about a 2-hour film.
It was 2 hours, and 4 minutes, 5 minutes.
And a half hour of trailers.
But I do like it, and as I think about it more and more, I like it. Yeah, I got little plot problems. Yeah, one of my friends said it was more of a Muto movie than a Godzilla movie because you got to see more of the Mutos doing destruction and things.
Yeah,
he was constantly swimming.
I could have used a little more Godzilla.
When he finally got there, one of my pet peeves were he starts fighting, and then all of a sudden we went to, well, let's look at him on TV because it's a news report, and then they just stop. It's like, well, what happened to the rest of the fight? How did the Muto get away? I was a little disappointed on that.
And how could the news be covering it if the guy emits an EMP pulse that shuts down all the equipment?
Well, let's go back to the 2. Why does the creature have his weapon is an EMP? How is that going to take out Godzilla or defend them?
Well, it's not going to do anything for Godzilla. All it's doing is the people.
Well, it's like... But I just didn't totally understand it as the power of the monster. He had an EMP. Like you said, the only thing it's going to affect is...
Mechanical
devices. Electrical devices. Yeah. At least Godzilla had a breath weapon. Why couldn't he have beam weapon or not have a beam weapon?
Thank God they gave him the breath weapon because that was the cherry on top.
That's true. But yeah, exactly. But I'm just saying is, other than that, I still like the movie. Let's go back. I give it 8 or 10. I'm liking it more and more. It's a good movie. You'll enjoy it. It's serious. It's dark at times. I think they did a good job trying to pull on the original idea of the first movie and what he is and what he represented, what Godzilla is. And do we want a sequel? Yeah, I want a sequel, and I'm hoping for a sequel. I think it's going to. From what I hear, box office-wise, it's making a lot of money right now. It's a 4-day weekend they made because it started Thursday night, but I've heard it's up to $98 million already.
Wow.
Or $89 million. It's up there. I just saw somebody posted some comments on Facebook this morning. I want to see it. Love to see a sequel. It's worth watching. If you're a giant monster fan, you're a Godzilla fan, go for it. Most of my friends, we all came out. There was none of us actually said they hated it. Most people, well, I liked it. And the other comments were, you know what? I need to watch it again. I need to digest it a little more. I want to see more of it and come out with a full opinion. But all of us Godzilla fans, like there was a good 20 of us, everybody loved it.
How about you, Kyle? Did you like it?
Yeah, it was pretty good.
I enjoyed it too. Again, my trick is don't overthink it. Enjoy it. It's a fun film, but don't fall into these pits of nitpicking because there's a lot of movies like that. Even last year, there were a lot of movies, and I know I keep bringing Pacific Rim back into this, but yeah, there were movies that if you think too much, you're going to just catch yourself in a web of like, well, how could that happen? How could this happen? You got to be able to suspend belief, to a certain extent. And this was a fun ride movie. It wasn't too long. It wasn't rushed or anything. It was pretty much exactly where we wanted to go for our first film. I keep referring to it as an origin film because I have this superhero lingo still going on because there's so many superhero movies. But yeah, I would love to see where they go next, what characters they come up with next. They have to be new characters. And, overall, great job. We stayed all the way to the end because we were hoping for any little bonus thing, but there was no bonus scene. There was no tag or anything. So if you're listening to this, you can leave after the movie's over. You don't have to go through all the credits.
Yeah, we stayed too. We were listening to the music, and yeah, we heard there was nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing after the credits, so Just sit and watch it. Enjoy it. It's a good monster movie. You good battle scenes at the end. I thought the payoff was good when Godzilla's finally out there killing the Mutos, and go for it.
Exactly. Well, let's now hear from Steve Ivona, another one of our contributors, who has a few words about Godzilla. This is, again, 2014 Godzilla. He got to see it. He's a fan, and it would appear as if he had a good time. How'd it go, Steve?
I had a great time. I think that there's been a lot of criticism about the way, not the way that this film was shot, but sort of the way they held off on showing you Godzilla or showing you monster battles and teased you. And Gareth Edwards, who directed the low-budget film Monsters about 4 years ago.
Very good film.
A very good film that I'm a fan of. Really, really teased you. And I think that had more to do with the constraints of his budget than anything else, that he could really, he kind of showed you monsters from a distance or on TV or whatever, or showed you the after effects of things. This time he had the budget, but I think he thought, and I think rightly so, that the teasing or the foreplay, if you will, sort of made you appreciate Godzilla when you finally saw. I mean, you saw him. You know, you did see him.
You're saying he tried to pull a Jaws?
Yeah, a little bit of a Jaws, and I think the suspense worked. I have so many friends who saw this film and bitched that there wasn't enough Godzilla, there wasn't enough fighting, and I mean, I could sort of see their point, but when it finally happened, I was in heaven. I was in like Geek, Godzilla heaven. I mean, the final battle is worth the wait. And I think that the lead up to it, the suspense, whatever you want to call it, it gets you so amped up for when it finally happens. Now, I don't think that they can get away with this in a sequel.
No, this is an origin story.
This is an origin, this is a beginning, and I think that the teasing and all that other stuff, I think it works once. And then the next one, you probably have to sort of go bigger. You know, if you can go bigger in a movie like this.
Let me ask you, because I asked Mike the same question. Where do you think the future could or should go?
Well, it's hard to say because, with the Japanese Godzilla films, more often than not, every film is just he fights another monster, he fights another two monsters. He's already fought two monsters in this one, and they set Godzilla up, and I think rightly so, as sort of the protagonist / hero of the film. And I don't like Godzilla as a bad guy, as a villain. And, obviously he causes mass destruction. And even when he's fighting for us, he's probably killing hundreds of thousands of people.
Like in Man of Steel. There's
like in Man of Steel, whatever.
And Pacific Rim.
Colleagues that we have, who aren't here right now, would agree with us.
If they weren't tied up and gagged.
But so I... in terms of the way the story was told, I was very happy. I thought there was some sort of disaster movie conventions that they adhered to. And, except for Bryan Cranston, who I love, people thought he was just sort of like the crazy ass scientist. But I didn't see him that way. I saw him as this grieving husband who, yes, was he a little bit unhinged? Yes. I don't think he went full crazy. Mm-hmm. And I liked his performance. And I have one friend who was like, he was in it for 10 minutes. He was in it for at least a half hour to 40 minutes.
Quite a bit.
And I loved the opening scene with Juliette Binoche and how he lost her and everything. I found Aaron Taylor Johnson a little wooden. And I thought that a lot of, again, I complained about this on a previous or future podcast, that so much of what does happen with his character kind of hinges on coincidence, and it just so happens that he's the bomb munitions expert and he's the one that survives, and he's the one. You know what, at a certain point with a certain kind of movie, you just have to suck it up. It's Godzilla. So I'm more, it depends on the movie where I'm willing to sort of forgive that, and in this movie I was totally willing to forgive that. I loved how his character, after a whole movie of really doing nothing, his character is responsible for like destroying the hive, kind of like the alien queen in Aliens, he's the guy, so I like that. I loved the appearance of Godzilla after that horrendous Roland Emmerich film in 1998, which I saw after coming back from my honeymoon, and I was so desperate to see that movie and so mad that it was being released when I was away, and it just stank. And this movie, I just think it fired on all cylinders. It was handled brilliantly. I'm on board for the sequel. Just to answer your original question, I don't know where it's going to go. I have no clue. I think that it's probably you just got to keep them fighting bigger, badder monsters. I mean, where else do you go?
Let me ask you a quick question that I already asked Mike. And this is something we talked about a long time ago when we were reviewing Pacific Rim. Do you think this movie will help Pacific Rim? And do you think Pacific Rim helped this movie?
I hope so. I hope the success of this movie lets there be a sequel to Pacific Rim because I enjoyed that very much. And I don't know if Pacific Rim, I mean, it's not considered a bomb, but I don't know that. I think the name recognition of Godzilla is right there.
Yeah, it's a brand.
It's a brand. And then the fact that it was done well helps. So it's already I'm sure it's already outgrossed Pacific Rim, but I very much enjoyed Pacific Rim. I like the spirit in which it was made because Guillermo del Toro is a huge fan of Godzilla and Japanese monsters. It was his take on that and his spin on that with the Jaegers and all that. And I thought that was a great idea. I hope that Godzilla 2 does not rip off Pacific Rim.
Right.
Because I think that would be lousy.
Yeah.
And I think, just don't do that because we've already done Pacific Rim.
They don't have to. Godzilla has other places they
Godzilla
could
can
visit.
go,
Yeah.
the original Japanese series, as cheesy as it might be, and I love those movies. I'm a particular fan of the 90s Godzilla movies.
Oh.
The ones that came out when we were kids are a little
Saturday afternoon.
tough for me.
Channel 5, Channel 11.
Aside from the original with the 1954 version, which I think is a classic film of any genre, I think that they get really kiddie, I think they have their virtues, but they're tough to get through.
The 54, again, as Mike has mentioned before, was a more serious message film.
Right.
Then it became franchise,
goofiness.
Free-for-all.
Yeah, but then when they rebooted, so to speak, in the 80s, they did a film called Godzilla vs. Biollante, which I absolutely love. And I would love to talk to Mike about it someday because I think that even within the constraints of the special effects and the budgets that the Japanese had, it's an amazing film with a sort of really amazing monster. And then, the 90s series, again, it's same thing, man in a suit, but they were done very well, I thought. And the acting was good. And then they did another series of films like After 2000, which I thought were weaker. Some were good, some were not so good. But I've always been a fan. Always been a fan.
And Steve, why don't you tell us one more thing? Talk about a director that just hit the lottery, about Gareth Edwards, the Godzilla director.
Well, the big news that just came down the pike is that Gareth Edwards, who was really hit the lottery. I mean, he did a very low budget film that got him the attention of Warner Brothers and Legendary Pictures to direct Godzilla. And now, within a week of the massive opening of Godzilla, has been named to direct the standalone Star Wars, the first standalone Star Wars film, which is going to be released in 2016. We don't know exactly what it is. We can speculate that it's possibly a Boba Fett film or a young Han Solo film. We have no clue. We have no evidence as to what it's going to be. But I think that begs the question, because it's sort of up in the air, was he contractually obligated to do Godzilla 2? Are they hoping that he's going to direct Godzilla 2? Will they give him the time? Obviously the Star Wars film is going to come together rather quickly if it has to come out in 2016. So I think that Warner Brothers is hoping he does Godzilla 2. I am too. But I'm very intrigued at the notion that he's going to do a Star Wars film. And, we'll just have to wait and see who it's about.
Thank you, Steve, for giving us your 2 cents and then some.
My pleasure.
Well, I'd like to thank Mike, Kyle, and Steve for joining us today on our Godzilla. I know it's not called 2014, but there's so many of them that we have to kind of reference them somehow. But thank you guys for joining us today, and we will see you here next time on Geekfest Rants. Bye-bye, everybody.
世界が終わる。ゴジラ。
We can't talk now anyway because Truckzilla's coming by.
Yeehaw!